I'm Quinn, 32 years old, and secretly the CEO of a tech empire worth billions. My family has no clue. For years, they've dismissed me, mocked my choices, and labeled me the family disappointment. Tonight, at Christmas dinner, my sister Natalie smirked as my mother announced that I'd sleep in the freezing garage while her boss took the guest room. My hands clenched under the table, heart pounding with silent fury. 5 years of hiding my success, enduring ridicule. Tonight, that ends. Tomorrow, everything changes. Before I reveal how I went from a frigid garage to watching my family's jaws drop, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories of standing your ground. I grew up in suburban Boston, in a family obsessed with status, prestigious universities, conventional careers, and endless approval. My parents, Valeria and William Montgomery, measured success by trophies and titles. My older sister, Natalie, now 38, was the golden child, Ivy League degree, MBA, marketing director at APEX Industries. Every family event became her stage. My younger brother, Ethan, 28, followed her blueprint, and a finance degree, top accounting firm, now junior partner. My parents glowed with pride whenever his name came up. And then there was me, stuck in the middle, the square peg they could never fit into their perfectly round mold. Since age 10, I was obsessed with computers. While other kids played, I tore apart electronics, taught myself programming, built projects that excited me, but scared my parents. "Quinn, when will you join a real club?" my mother nagged. "Colleges want well-rounded students, not kids hiding in their rooms." High school only widened the gap. Natalie was prom queen and class president. I founded a coding club that met during lunch. My projects were innovative, praised by teachers, but at home, a lack of focus. "You jump from one thing to another," my father scolded after I abandoned a half-finished robot for a website. "Follow through, like your sister." But I wasn't quitting. I was evolving, learning, growing with each project. College was supposed to bridge the gap. I enrolled in business school for my parents, secretly building my startup. By sophomore year, I'd created a groundbreaking cloud security solution that companies already noticed. Dropping out to pursue it full-time, family disaster. "You're throwing your life away," my father spat across the table. "We didn't raise you to be a quitter." Even my mother scoffed. No stability, no benefits, no real career. Natalie shook her head, that smug smile I'd come to loathe. "Not everyone is destined for success, Mom. Some people have to learn the hard way." From that point, comparisons were relentless. Every gathering, Natalie's triumphs, my supposed failures. She drove up in her luxury car, dressed to impress, boasting about corner offices and teams. My parents beamed with pride over her. When forced to mention me, their words were lukewarm at best. "Natalie just closed a 7-figure deal," my father bragged. "Quinn is still figuring things out," my mother muttered. The moment that changed everything happened 3 years ago during Thanksgiving dinner. I had just secured $2 million in seed funding, a milestone I had dreamed of for years. But as I opened my mouth to share the news, Natalie cut in with her promotion announcement, Senior Director at APEX Industries. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," my mother gushed, completely ignoring that I was mid-sentence. Glasses clinked in a toast to Natalie, and in that instant, I made a decision. I would stop chasing their approval. More than that, I would keep my success a secret, let them believe whatever they wanted. Someday, they would learn the truth on my terms. That night, I founded Next Tech Solutions. What began as a small security software startup quickly exploded into a full tech ecosystem, attracting major clients. Within 2 years, offices popped up in 3 cities. By year 3, we were international. Strategic partnerships, acquisitions of smaller firms, reinvested profits. Each move was calculated. I chose to remain anonymous publicly, letting trusted executives be our face. Competitors underestimated us. And most importantly, my family remained oblivious. Living a double life was exhausting. I owned a penthouse downtown, but told them I rented a tiny studio. I drove a 10-year-old Honda to family events, while my garage housed a fleet of luxury cars. I faced endless questions about real jobs while running board meetings for a billion-dollar company. 5 years after leaving college, I made my boldest move, acquiring Apex Industries, the very company where Natalie had built her golden child career. The irony was delicious. Soon, unbeknownst to her, my sister would work for the family disappointment. The acquisition documents arrived 1 week before Christmas. My fingers traced the embossed logo, now bearing the Nextech label. 5 years of relentless effort had led to this. Should I prepare the announcement for the APEX employees? My assistant Diane asked. I shook my head. Not yet. Let them enjoy Christmas without corporate stress. What I didn't say was this. I wanted one last family gathering where the old dynamics still held. One final Christmas before the bomb dropped. The yearly invite arrived as punctual as ever. Christmas Eve dinner at 6. Let us know if you're coming. There was no warmth, just logistics. I accepted, every instinct telling me not to, knowing exactly what awaited. Natalie's bragging, my parents' thinly veiled disappointment, and Ethan's quiet obedience to the hierarchy. Despite owning luxury cars, I drove my trusty Honda Civic to the suburban home. The modest car was both disguise and shield, a reminder that their approval no longer defined me. Pulling into the driveway, I noticed a sleek Jaguar I didn't recognize. Inside, the scene confirmed it. Natalie had invited a guest, Harold Winter, Senior VP of Marketing at APEX, her boss, the man she had spent years trying to impress. "Quinn, do you remember Harold?" she asked, though we had never met. Her red designer dress gleamed under the chandelier, clearly more than my monthly salary. Harold stood next to her, impeccably suited, Rolex glinting. "Actually, we haven't had the pleasure," I said, extending my hand. Jeans, simple sweater, my disguise flawless. "Quinn, there you are," my mother called from the kitchen doorway. "I could use some help with the vegetables. Natalie and Harold are catching up with your father in the living room." And there it was, the familiar routine I'd endured for years. Natalie holding court in the living room while I was relegated to kitchen duty. I silently chopped carrots and peeled potatoes. Every laugh and clink of glasses from the other room, a sharp reminder of my place in this family. "So, how's the new corner office, Harold?" my father asked. "Natalie says the harbor view is spectacular." "It certainly is, William," Harold replied, "though I hear our enigmatic new CEO has an even better one." My ears perked up. Technically, I did have a better view, from the top floor of Nextech Tower downtown. "Have you met this new CEO yet?" my father pressed. "No one has," Natalie interjected, her tone dripping with intrigue. "He's like a ghost. Makes all the big decisions, never shows his face." "Her face," I whispered to myself, smirking at the carrot I was chopping. "Quinn, how's that little website thing you were working on?" my father suddenly called out, as if remembering I existed. "Any luck with it?" I bit my tongue. My little website thing had just acquired Natalie's company for $3 billion. "It's coming along," I said noncommittally. "Actually, there's an entry-level marketing position opening at APEX next quarter," Natalie said, stepping into the kitchen to refill her wine glass. "Nothing fancy, but it's real experience." I could put in a word. The condescension in her voice made my jaw tighten. If only she knew, I'd be evaluating her performance next month. "Thanks, but I'm fine with my current situation," I managed. "Suit yourself," she shrugged, drifting back to the living room. As I finished dinner prep, fragments of my parents' whispers floated to me. "At least Ethan is making something of himself," my mother murmured. "I worry about Quinn, 32, and still chasing internet dreams." "Natalie has tried to help her," my father added, "but you can't help someone who refuses to help themselves." I closed my eyes, letting the familiar sting wash over me. 5 years of building an empire had shielded me, yet some wounds never fully heal. My phone buzzed, a text from my CFO about the APEX transition. Finalized retention packages for key executives. Harold Winter included per your instructions. A small, victorious smile crept across my face. Harold had no idea that his future at the company was already being shaped by the woman chopping vegetables in this very kitchen. The final insult came moments later. I stepped into the hallway to check an urgent email and overheard Natalie and my mother in the guest bedroom. "We've put Harold in here, of course," my mother said. "Your father and I are in our room. Ethan's in his old room, and you'll have yours." "What about Quinn?" Natalie asked, though the tone made it clear she already knew. "The couch in the den is too short, so the garage will do." "Just for one night?" my mother replied. "Perfect," Natalie laughed. The garage suits her. She's used to roughing it with that startup lifestyle. My blood ran cold. The garage, Boston, December, no heat. My hands shook with silent fury as I returned to the kitchen, pretending not to have overheard. 5 years building an empire, enduring their ridicule, and now a freezing garage for Christmas Eve. The dining room gleamed with festive perfection. Quin glasses reflected the chandelier's light, china plates on the family heirloom tablecloth, pine and holly stretching along the centerpiece. Assigned seating placed me at the far end, almost in another time zone from the conversation. My mother had Harold at the head, my father opposite, Natalie to his right, mother to his left, Ethan beside Natalie. And I was furthest away, next to an empty chair, a symbol of my emotional exile. To his credit, Harold seemed uneasy. Several times, as dishes passed, he caught my eye, curiosity flickering across his face. "So, Quinn," Harold asked during a lull, "what exactly do you do in tech?" Before I could answer, Natalie let out a laugh she tried to disguise as a cough. "Oh, Quinn dabbles in web stuff," she said dismissively. "Nothing like what you see at APEX." "I work in security solutions," I replied, locking eyes with Harold, "mainly cloud infrastructure." A flicker of genuine interest crossed his face. "Really? That's actually one of our growth areas at APEX. We just acquired a smaller security firm last quarter." "What platforms do you specialize in?" Natalie interjected, hand lightly on his arm. "You don't need to discuss work with Quinn, Harold. Tell them about the Tokyo expansion instead." Just like that, my brief moment of recognition vanished. Harold hesitated, then followed her cue, launching into tales of APEX's international growth. Dinner unfolded in its usual rhythm. Natalie dominated the conversation, sharing stories about her clients and strategic wins. My parents nodded and smiled, pride plastered across their faces. Ethan occasionally chimed in with his own achievements, while my rare comments were met with polite nods before someone quickly changed the topic, a routine drilled into me over countless gatherings. "The food is delicious, Valeria," Harold said, finishing his second helping of ham. "You've really outdone yourself." "Thank you, Harold," my mother beamed. "It's wonderful to have everyone home, and having you here is such a delight." "Speaking of which," my father interjected, "we should discuss sleeping arrangements." "It's getting late," my stomach nodded. "Here it comes." "Harold, we've prepared the guest room for you," my mother announced. "Fresh sheets and towels in the ensuite." "Natalie, you'll have your old room, of course," my father continued. "And Ethan is already settled." All eyes turned to me. A flicker of discomfort passed across my parents' faces. "Quinn," my mother said, her voice unnaturally cheerful, "we've set up the garage for you. There's a camping cot and plenty of blankets. I know it's not perfect, but it's just one night." Natalie smirked behind her wine glass, while Ethan suddenly found his mashed potatoes fascinating. "The garage isn't heated," I said flatly. "You can use one of the space heaters," my father suggested, as if that made it acceptable. "It won't be that bad." Harold looked genuinely shocked. "The garage? But it's freezing outside." "Quinn doesn't mind," Natalie added quickly. "She's always been adventurous, right, sis?" The condescension made my blood boil. At that moment, it hit me. She had orchestrated this, bringing Harold to ensure I was the one displaced. "I'm confident we can find another solution," Harold offered, uneasy. "It's all right," I replied, steadier than I felt. "I have work to finish tonight anyway." After dinner, I accompanied my mother to inspect the garage. What I found was worse than I imagined. Storage boxes stacked haphazardly, old workout gear, neglected decorations. In the center, a drooping camping cot with a flimsy mattress, mismatched blankets piled at one end, and a tiny space heater that looked straight out of the 90s. "It's just for one night," my mother repeated, avoiding my gaze. "You're always on your laptop anyway. You probably won't notice." Once she returned to the warmth of the house, I perched on the edge of the cot and checked my phone. 28 degrees inside, freezing. I opened my laptop, entering my password as usual, and saw an urgent message from my executive team. Final approval was needed on the APEX acquisition. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., a company-wide email would announce Nextech as Apex's new parent company, including Natalie and Harold, and introduce me as the CEO. The fire inside me ignited. They had no idea who truly controlled everything. As I sifted through the documents, a plan crystallized in my mind. Why wait until tomorrow? Why not seize control now? My phone buzzed, a text from my assistant. Ready to send the executive briefing tonight instead of tomorrow morning if you give the go-ahead. All department heads at APEX will be informed simultaneously. I glanced at the clock. 8:30 p.m., Christmas Eve. Both Harold and Natalie would get the notification as senior staff. Harold's reaction in particular would be impossible to hide. My finger hovered over send 5 years in hiding, enduring their disregard. 5 years of restraint. And now, they were sending me to a freezing garage on Christmas Eve. Was I really going to let that happen? The garage door creaked open. Harold stepped in, looking uneasy. "Sorry to intrude," he said. "Just wanted to check if you're all right. It's really cold out here." Before I could reply, his phone buzzed, then chimed again and again. He frowned, pulling it from his pocket. Odd, several urgent messages from the executive team on Christmas Eve. He opened the first email. Shock replaced confusion. "This says Apex has been acquired by Nextech Solutions, effective immediately. But that can't be right. We would have been informed." His phone rang. He answered immediately. "Harold Winters." "Yes. I just saw the emails." "No, I had no idea. The CEO wants to speak now? On Christmas Eve?" As he listened, his eyes widened. Slowly, he turned toward me. "Really?" Recognition dawned. "She's right here," he whispered into the phone. The garage suddenly felt colder. Harold stared at me, phone pressed to his ear. I could hear our COO's tiny voice asking if he was really speaking with Quinn Montgomery, CEO of Nextech Solutions. "I believe I am," he said cautiously, eyes locked on mine. I extended my hand. "May I?" Mechanically, he handed over the phone. Perched on the sagging cot in my parents' cluttered garage, I felt the surreal weight of this moment. 5 years of deception about to break. "James," I said, adopting my executive voice, the one my family had never heard, commanding and precise. "Yes, I'm with Harold. The timeline has moved up. Proceed with the full executive announcement tonight. We'll address the rest of the staff tomorrow as planned." A pause. Confusion hung over the line. "Tonight, ma'am, it's Christmas Eve." "I'm aware," I replied, eyes on Harold as his face paled. "Circumstances have changed. Proceed immediately." I ended the call, handing the phone back. Harold took it as though it might bite him. "You're the CEO of Nextech," he said, voice trembling. Not a question, but a confirmation. "You bought APEX." "I did," I said, shutting my laptop. His gaze swept over the garage, the cot, the space heater, the cold. "Sleeping in a garage on Christmas Eve," he finished for me. "Yes," I replied. The house door opened. Natalie appeared, phone clutched in her hand, her face drained of color. "Harold, did you—" "Something's happening with the company. They're saying we've been acquired." Her words faltered as she saw his expression, then followed his gaze to me. What's going on?" "Perhaps we should discuss this inside," I suggested, rising from the cot. "It's quite cold out here." They followed, dazed. Warm air greeted us as we entered the kitchen. My parents and Ethan were tidying up. "Done settling in already?" my mother asked, not looking up. "There's been a change of plans," I said, calm, deliberate. "We need to talk." Something in my tone registered. My mother turned, dishcloth in hand. My father looked up from a platter. Ethan paused mid-dish. All eyes shifted to me, shock written across Natalie and Harold's faces. Harold's phone rang again, slicing through the tension like a knife. He glanced at the screen, then at me, uncertain, frozen in place. "You should answer that," I said calmly. "It's probably the CFO with the retention package details." His eyebrows shot up, but he answered, putting it on speaker, seemingly unaware. "Harold, it's Greg from Finance. Have you seen the announcement? Nextech has acquired us, and the CEO wants immediate meetings with all department heads. They say she's been working undercover. Do you know anything?" The kitchen went utterly silent. 5 pairs of eyes locked on me. "Greg, I'll call you back," Harold murmured, ending the call. "Quinn," Natalie began, her voice unusually high, trembling. "What is he talking about? What do you know?" I glanced around at my family, the same kitchen where countless holidays had rendered me invisible. The moment I had both dreaded and anticipated for 5 years had arrived. "I'm the CEO and founder of Nextech Solutions," I said simply. "As of last week, I own APEX Industries." The silence was absolute. My mother's dishcloth slipped from her fingers. My father's mouth opened and closed, making no sound. Ethan froze mid-motion, a plate suspended above the dishwasher. Natalie finally broke the quiet with a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "That's not possible. Nextech is worth billions. It's one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country." "Yes," I confirmed, calm but firm. "It is. But you dropped out of college," my father stammered. "You've been working on some small startup." "That small startup was Nextech," I clarified. "It hasn't been small for quite some time." "You're lying," Natalie accused, though doubt now crept into her voice. "This is a joke." I pulled out my phone and opened a secure app linked to Nextech's system, entered my authorization code, turned the screen toward them. The dashboard only a CEO could access. "This is real-time data from our global operations," I explained. "Current valuation, over $11 billion, 7,000 employees across 4 continents. And, as of last week, that includes everyone at APEX Industries." Harold began to nod slowly, piecing it together. "The security advancements, the management, the cloud shift, that was all you." "Every single part of it," I confirmed. "But why didn't you tell us?" my mother finally whispered. "All this time, we believed—" "You thought I was a failure," I finished for her. "You made that abundantly clear. Every holiday, every gathering, every phone call." "We were worried," my father protested weakly. "We wanted security for you." "No," I interrupted, letting years of repressed emotion pour out. "You wanted me to be like Natalie, to follow a path you understood. When I chose differently, you concluded I was lost. You never once asked about what I was building, never showed interest." "That's not fair," Natalie snapped. "We tried to help." "I offered job connections." "You offered entry-level roles and condescension," I countered. "You brought your boss to Christmas dinner and sent me to the garage to impress him." Harold flinched, clearly uncomfortable. "I didn't know you'd be in the garage." "I would never have agreed if I had known." My mother stepped forward, her expression shifted. Respect, maybe even a hint of fear. "Quinn, sweetheart, had we known, we would have supported you. We always wanted the best." "Please don't," I interrupted, raising a hand. "Don't pretend that wealth would have changed anything. That only makes it worse." The kitchen fell silent again. My phone buzzed relentlessly as the news spread through executives at both companies. Outside, snow began drifting, frosting the window panes white. "So, what happens now?" Ethan asked for the first time, voice tentative. "Business continues as usual for most employees," I explained, grateful for the practical question. The storm in the room was just beginning. "There will be some changes at the executive level, but there won't be any mass layoffs." Natalie's complexion shifted from pale to a ghostly gray. I caught myself wondering, am I getting fired? The thought hung heavily in the air. 5 years ago, this moment, holding the power to decide my sister's future, might have thrilled me. Now, it felt strangely hollow. "No, Natalie, you're not being let go," I said firmly. "Your marketing strategies have been successful, despite our differences. Starting next month, however, you'll be reporting to a new director." Relief flickered across her face, only to be replaced by anxiety. "Will everyone know we're sisters?" she asked, voice hesitant. "That's your choice," I replied. "I've kept my identity private for business reasons, not just personal ones. That changes now, but we can navigate how to manage our working relationship." My father cleared his throat, struggling to reconcile the image of me he'd always held with this new reality. "Where do you live?" he asked suddenly. "You always mentioned a small downtown apartment." "I have a penthouse on the waterfront," I said calmly, "and homes in New York and San Francisco, where our other main offices are." My mother sank into a kitchen chair, overwhelmed. All this time, we had no idea. "That was intentional," I admitted. "After years of proving myself to you, I chose to focus on the company. It became my priority." Harold's phone buzzed again. He glanced at me apologetically before stepping into the hallway, speaking in crisp executive tones that made him sound entirely like the SVP addressing a crisis. Natalie stared at me as if I were a stranger. In many ways, she was. The crystal-clear image she'd held of her little sister, the one she alternately ignored and mocked, had never truly existed. "I suppose I should retrieve my things from the garage," I said, breaking the tense silence. "I'll find a hotel for tonight." "No," my mother interjected, springing to her feet. "You can't leave now. It's Christmas Eve, and your family." The irony of her sudden concern wasn't lost on anyone. "The guest room is ready," my father said quickly. "Harold can take the den or garage if needed." I made it clear, I wouldn't put anyone in that garage, not for a single night. Harold returned, tucking his phone away. "That was the board chairman," he said. "Emergency meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning?" He looked at me with newfound respect. "Your team is fast," he remarked. "Efficiency has always been a key focus at Nextech," I replied. The atmosphere in the kitchen had shifted completely. My family stood awkwardly, uncertain of their roles. The power dynamics that had defined us for years had been overturned in just 15 minutes. "I need some fresh air," Natalie said abruptly, heading to the back door. After a brief hesitation, I followed. The back porch was dusted with fresh snow, sparkling under the porch light. Natalie leaned against the railing, her breath misting in the cold. "Are you really keeping me on?" she asked, not turning. "Or was that just for show?" "I meant what I said," I assured her, joining her at the railing. "Your work is valuable, Natalie." "The past doesn't change that." She nodded slowly, still avoiding my gaze. "I've treated you terribly." "Yes," I agreed simply. "You have. And now, you're my boss," she said, a short, humorless laugh escaping her. "Oh, the irony." "Life is full of surprises," I replied. Finally, she looked at me. "Why didn't you tell me all these years while I bragged about APEX, knowing you could buy and sell us 10 times over? Why let me embarrass myself?" I paused, considering. At first, it was self-preservation. The company was expanding but still fragile. Then it became a habit, and maybe a part of me was waiting. Waiting for what? For one of you to notice me, I admitted. To show interest in my life without knowing what I had achieved, to value me for who I am, not just my success. Tears welled in Natalie's eyes, a sight I hadn't seen since childhood. "I don't think I know how to do that with anyone anymore," she whispered, possibly the most honest words she had ever spoken to me. I went back inside to grab my overnight bag from the garage, passing by my astonished family who looked frozen in place. Upon returning to the house, I found Harold gathering his things from the guest room. "I've arranged a car service," he said, his tone polite yet tentative. "I think it's best if I give your family some space tonight." "You don't have to go," I replied. "I think I must," he responded with a wry smile. "Besides, I have about 100 emails to respond to before morning. Apparently, my new boss is quite demanding." For the first time that evening, a genuine smile began to form on my lips. "Is that so?" I teased. "Her reputation precedes her," he affirmed, then added more seriously. "For what it's worth, you've created something extraordinary. The security framework you designed has transformed the industry. I'm genuinely excited to see where you take APEX." With that unexpected show of support, Harold left, leaving me alone with my family to face the aftermath of the first revelation. The living room had never been so quiet. We sat in our usual spots, but everything felt different. My parents in their matching recliners, Ethan perched on the arm of the sofa, Natalie curled up in the corner of the love seat, and I on the ottoman. We were separated by more than just physical distance. Finally, my father broke the silence. "A tech empire." It wasn't exactly a question, but I nodded anyway. "Yes, and you've been managing this company all this time, while we thought—" My mother trailed off, unable to finish. "While you thought I was failing," I completed for her. "Yes." Natalie stared at her hands. "Why keep it a secret for so long? Why not just tell us?" The question seemed simple, but the answer was complex, filled with years of pain and disappointment. "Initially, I needed to prove it to myself," I explained. "I hesitated to share my ambitious plans, fearing failure. But as the company grew, I realized, you never showed interest in my work before, so why would money change that? What I sought wasn't validation of my wealth, but belief in me and my vision." "We always had faith in you," my mother said weakly. No, I replied firmly yet calmly. You believed in a version of me that never existed, the daughter who would follow Natalie's path. When I chose differently, your faith disappeared. My father shifted in his seat, uneasy. We worried about your future, he said. That's what parents do. I distinguish between concern and dismissal, I countered. You never once asked me to clarify my business model or goals. You simply assumed I was pretending to be an entrepreneur. Ethan cleared his throat. I remember when you tried to share details about your first funding round. Mom interrupted to ask Natalie about her new car. My mother flushed. I don't recall that. I do, Natalie quietly interjected. I remember thinking it was fine, because whatever Quinn was doing couldn't possibly be as important as my promotion. That admission hung in the air. Throughout our years of competition, Natalie had never acknowledged her role in belittling me. What exactly does Next Tech do? Ethan asked, his voice genuinely curious. Aside from owning APEX. A flicker of hope sparked inside me. For the first time that evening, someone cared about my work, not my finances. We started with advanced cloud security, I explained. The security protocols I created became the industry standard within 2 years. From there, we expanded into integrated systems management, data protection, and eventually AI applications for enterprises. Ethan nodded, absorbing the information. That's why APEX was a strategic acquisition. Their hardware enhances your software ecosystem. Exactly, I confirmed, impressed by his quick understanding. And you accomplished all this without a college degree? My father asked, his tone hard to read. The skills I needed, I taught myself, I said. Everything else, I hired people more knowledgeable than me. That's the hallmark of effective CEOs. My mother abruptly stood and went into the kitchen. When she returned, she held a magazine that had been hidden beneath a pile of mail. The magazine cover showed a dark silhouette beneath the headline, Next Tech's mysterious founder, Tech's most influential and visible leader. This came with Williams' Business Journal last month, my mother said, her voice tight. I never connected it to you. I never even read the article. The irony hit me sharply. Evidence of my success had literally been sitting on their coffee table, unnoticed, unread. Does this mean you're wealthy? My father asked awkwardly. Yes, I said simply. Very much so. Natalie let out a sound that was part laugh, part sob. All those times I offered to help you financially, to get you back on your feet. Oh my God, you must have been laughing at me. I wasn't laughing, I replied firmly. It was painful to be perceived as someone who needed saving while I was building something I could be proud of. Are you going to fire me? She asked suddenly, fear clear in her voice. I already told you no, I reminded her. Your job is secure, although your reporting structure will change. She nodded, relief flooding her face. I don't deserve that kindness from you. It's not kindness, I corrected. It's business. You're skilled at what you do. Regardless of our personal history, my father leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I don't know what to say, Quinn. We've been completely mistaken about you. It was perhaps the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard from him. I kept the truth from you, I admitted. That's on me. But we gave you reason to, my mother said softly. We made you feel like you had to conceal your success instead of sharing it. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Years of family dynamics don't vanish in a single evening, no matter how revealing. Where do we go from here? Ethan finally asked, practical as ever. It was the question that hovered over all of us. How do you rebuild relationships founded on misunderstanding? How do you move forward when the past has been rewritten so completely? I don't know, I confessed. This isn't how I intended to share this with you. I'm still trying to process it myself. Will you stay tonight? My mother asked, a note of desperation in her voice. Not in the garage, of course. The guest room is ready for you. The thought of staying, sleeping under this roof with so many swirling emotions, felt daunting. Driving away on Christmas Eve seemed equally wrong. I'll stay, I resolved, but I need to make a few calls first. The executive team has been notified, and inquiries will follow. My father nodded, newfound respect in his eyes. Naturally, you have a company to manage. That simple acknowledgement of my responsibilities, something I had never received from him before, felt strangely validating. As I stood to retrieve my laptop from the garage, Natalie also got up. I'll help you move your things to the guest room, she offered, a small olive branch in the wake of the evening's revelations. We walked to the garage in silence. The space felt different now. The indignity of the cot seemed sharper in light of everything that had happened. I'm sorry about this, Natalie said, indicating the camping cot. It was my idea. To make me sleep in a freezing garage on Christmas Eve? I raised an eyebrow. She looked genuinely embarrassed. It sounds harsh when you put it that way. Because it was harsh, I said plainly. Whether I was a struggling entrepreneur or a billionaire CEO, it was unkind. She nodded, acknowledging the truth. I've spent so many years seeing you as competition instead of my sister. I don't know how to fix that. Perhaps that's where we start, I suggested, gathering my bag. By not competing. By simply being sisters. As we stepped back into the house, Harold texted me. Car service is here, heading downtown. The board is briefed and fully supportive of your leadership. Merry Christmas, boss. The message made me smile. At least professionally, the transition was going smoothly. My mother had prepared the guest room with fresh towels and even turned down the bed, a quiet peace offering for the chaos of the evening. My father had lit a fire in the fireplace, the flames casting a warm glow across the room, as if apologizing for the coldness the house had shown me earlier. That night, lying in the guest bed instead of the freezing garage cot, I reflected on the day's astonishing twists. 5 years of hiding, 5 years of watching my family misunderstand me, all ended in a single, explosive revelation. Tomorrow would bring new battles, the formal announcement to all Apex employees, press releases confirming my role as CEO, and the inevitable questions about why I had stayed invisible for so long. Yet, in this quiet moment, I allowed myself something rare, relief. The weight of deception had lifted. Whatever lay ahead, I would face it as my true self, no longer split between the successful CEO and the daughter they had doubted. Down the hall, I could hear Natalie speaking quietly on the phone, likely coordinating with colleagues at APEX, her tone low but urgent. From another room, the soft murmur of my parents drifted through their door, probably discussing the woman their middle child had become. We were still fractured, still distant, but for the first time in years, we were beginning to see each other clearly. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't even understanding, but it was a start. Christmas morning arrived, awkward and charged, like the scent of brewing coffee curling through the air. I woke early before sunrise, and found my father already in the kitchen, staring into his mug as though it contained answers to questions he hadn't yet formulated. "Merry Christmas," I said cautiously. He looked up, startled. "Merry Christmas, Quinn. Could I have some coffee, please?" He poured it carefully, almost ceremoniously, treating me more like a distinguished guest than his own daughter. "Did you sleep well?" I asked, unable to resist a small jab. "Better than I would have in the garage." He winced but nodded. "About that? It was inexcusable. I didn't realize how cold it was out there," he admitted, a half apology, a half acknowledgement. The most recognition I'd received from him in years. I accepted it with a nod. "I have calls to make before everyone wakes up," I said, glancing at my phone. "The formal announcement goes to all APEX employees at 9. "Of course," he replied, hesitating. "Should I leave you alone for privacy?" His words betrayed his lack of understanding of my work, my daily grind, my life. "No, it's fine. I'm used to working anywhere," I answered. He watched as I set up my laptop on the kitchen table, the same spot where I had once done homework, now transformed into the command center for a corporate empire. By 8:30, the rest of the family trickled in. My mother fussed over breakfast with unusual care, elaborate French toast, fresh fruit, all unplanned but prepared with meticulous precision. Natalie checked her phone obsessively, waiting for the official confirmation. Ethan observed with his usual careful neutrality, silently negotiating his place in this new reality. "Should we do presents now or after breakfast?" my mother asked, trying to enforce some normalcy. "After is fine," I said, closing my laptop as the clock neared 9. "The announcement is going out now." Almost immediately, Natalie's phone chimed with an incoming email. She read it silently, then lifted her eyes to me. "It's official," she said, her voice tight. Nextech Solutions has acquired APEX Industries, effective immediately. Quinn Montgomery, founder and CEO of Nextech, will address all employees after the holiday. My parents exchanged glances, absorbing the reality. A new Montgomery, my father murmured. You kept the family name. Naturally, I replied. Regardless of our differences, I'm still a Montgomery. A flicker of something, perhaps pride, passed across his face. Breakfast unfolded in strained normalcy. Conversation circled carefully. Avoiding the landmines of past grievances, everyone adjusting to a new hierarchy, one in which I now held undisputed authority. When we gathered at last around the Christmas tree, the difference from previous years was stark. The gifts beneath it told their own story, a silent testament to the day's upheaval, the shifting power, and the unexpected revelations that had transformed our family forever. The table bore the usual, thoughtfully selected presents for Natalie and Ethan, and the perfunctory items for me, carelessly chosen, clearly without consideration for my tastes. A generic scarf, a mall-bought bath set, a best-selling novel I had no desire to read. What no one expected, however, was the elegant stack of gifts I had brought, originally intended to leave behind when I headed to a hotel. Each was wrapped in understated yet luxurious paper, containing items I had handpicked months in advance. You brought gifts? My mother asked, surprise sharpening her tone. Of course, I replied, letting a calm authority underscore the word. It's Christmas. One by one, I handed them out. For my father, a rare first edition of his favorite economics book, signed by the author. For my mother, a handcrafted jewelry box holding a necklace from a boutique designer she had once mentioned admiring. For Ethan, a high-end watch he'd long coveted but would never buy for himself. And for Natalie, a leather portfolio embossed with her initials, filled with Japanese stationery she had raved about during a business trip to Tokyo the previous year. Shock etched their faces as they unwrapped each present, the contrast between their thoughtless gifts and mine laying bare the imbalance in our relationships. How did you know about the necklace? My mother whispered, touching the delicate pendant. I only mentioned it once, years ago. I listen, I said simply. I always have. My father cleared his throat, visibly moved. This must have been nearly impossible to find. Not impossible, I corrected, my tone deliberate. It just took persistence. Natalie ran her fingers over the embossed leather. You remembered Tokyo, the stationery shop I couldn't stop talking about. They felt unlike anything you'd used before, I reminded her, letting the words linger. They exchanged uneasy glances, the disparity between their hastily purchased items and my carefully considered gifts emphasizing what had long gone unacknowledged. Suddenly, my mother disappeared into her bedroom and returned with a small, hastily wrapped package. We got this morning. Your father went to the 24-hour pharmacy while you were on calls. Inside was a silver frame holding a printout of the magazine article about Nextech, the one they had previously ignored. We thought, maybe you could sign it, my father said awkwardly, since you're the mysterious CEO they wrote about. I accepted it with a small, knowing smile. Thank you. As the morning progressed, a subtle shift occurred. My parents began asking questions about Nextech, initially hesitant, then increasingly engaged as I outlined the company's journey. Ethan joined with thoughtful, probing questions about business strategy. Even Natalie, reassured of her role, leaned in with genuine curiosity. So, all those times you were on your laptop during holidays, you were actually running a billion-dollar company? Ethan asked, incredulous. Pretty much, I confirmed. Last Thanksgiving, I finalized a major acquisition while you all thought I was avoiding conversation. Is that why you always left early? My mother asked. Because of work? I hesitated, balancing honesty with patience. Partly work, yes, and partly because these gatherings were difficult, given how we treated you, my father admitted, catching me off guard. Yes, I said quietly. It's hard to endure hours of feeling like the family's disappointment. A heavy silence fell. My mother brushed away a tear. I found some old photos, she said suddenly, pulling an album from the bookshelf. From when you were in high school, part of that computer club. She flipped to a page showing a teenage me, beaming with classmates, proudly displaying a coding project that had won a regional competition, one they had chosen not to attend. You won first place, she murmured, finger tracing the ribbon in the photo. We skipped it because Natalie had a volleyball tournament that weekend. It's fine, I said automatically, the familiar dismissal rolling off my tongue. No, it's not fine, my father interjected sharply. We should have been there. At least one of us should have been, Natalie muttered, eyes fixed on the photo over my mother's shoulder. I had no idea you were involved in things like this. I was so consumed with my own activities. You were encouraged to be, I replied, voice steady, no accusation. We all were shaped by the family dynamics, by the roles we were pushed into. The conversation wove through lunch, tense yet necessary, peeling back decades of misunderstandings. There were no dramatic apologies or tearful reconciliations, only a slow, deliberate acknowledgement of the patterns that had controlled our relationships for far too long. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from Harold. Company-wide email has been sent. Your inbox is overflowing with congratulations and inquiries. The PR team is handling press questions. Everything is moving smoothly. I showed it to Natalie, her brow furrowed with anxiety over the workplace shift. It's going to be fine, I reassured her. The integration team will manage most of the changes. Your daily work won't be drastically different. Except my little sister is now the big boss, she said with a sly smile, the first genuine one I had seen from her in years. That is true, I confirmed, letting the moment settle. As evening drew near, we gathered for a more casual dinner than the previous night's formal tension. Conversation flowed more freely, no longer weighed down by secrets or pretense. My father asked about Nextech's expansion plans. My mother inquired about my residences in New York and San Francisco. Ethan peppered me with questions about management strategy. Most surprisingly, Natalie shared stories about APEX, inviting my input, bridging the professional gap between us. She admitted the rollout of the security platform had been a nightmare from marketing's perspective. We struggled to convey the benefits clearly to the average user, she said. That's a widespread challenge in the industry, I replied evenly. It's a matter of technical features versus user experience. At Nextech, we reverse the process, start with the user, and work backward to the technology. That's brilliant, she said, her tone edged with professional respect for the first time. For a fleeting second, I glimpsed what might have been, a relationship grounded in respect, not rivalry. Perhaps it wasn't too late to cultivate it now. After dinner, we settled into the living room with coffee. My father finally voiced the question that had been hovering all day. Why keep your success hidden from us? I understand the business reasons for anonymity, but why not share it with family? This was the pivotal moment, the unspoken tension that had threaded every interaction since my revelation. I needed to see if you could recognize me for who I truly am, I answered candidly, not merely for accomplishments or status. I wanted to be valued for my ideas, my vision, my character, not my finances or title. And we failed that test, my mother said softly. Yes, I confirmed, letting the weight of years settle between us. Until yesterday, you did. And now? Ethan asked. What does this mean for us going forward? I scanned their faces, familiar yet subtly changed in light of understanding. Now, I said, we begin anew, not erasing the past, but not letting it dictate our future either. As Christmas Day faded, I realized something profound. Unveiling my secret had not brought the triumph I expected. Instead, it created space for something far more valuable, genuine connection. We were not fully healed. Years of pain, miscommunication, and unlearning remained. Yet, for the first time since I was a teenager with dreams dismissed by everyone around me, I felt truly seen by my family. Not perfectly, not entirely, but sincerely. This was a beginning. 6 months later, I stood on the deck of my lakeside home, watching my family arrive for the summer reunion. The change was evident in the ease with which they approached, no awkward hesitations. My mother enveloped me in a warm embrace, a stark contrast to the stiff formal greetings of past years. The house is stunning, Quinn, she said, her eyes reflecting both pride and awe. You have to give me the complete tour this time, my father said, stepping forward with a bottle of champagne and a tech magazine clutched in one hand. You made the cover again. Thought we could add it to the collection. Since Christmas, my parents had set up a special shelf in their home to showcase articles and awards related to my work. a bold, open display of pride that had once been reserved solely for Natalie and Ethan. The shift was unmistakable, a tangible acknowledgement of the changes in our family. Natalie was the last to arrive, moving with a surprising ease. The acquisition had initially unsettled her, forcing her to navigate her new position in the corporate hierarchy. But now she had found her balance. Our professional and personal bonds had grown in parallel, each strengthening the other. "The marketing team is excited about the new product direction," she said, as we prepared dinner together, a shared activity that had been unthinkable in past years. "The focus groups are responding exactly as you predicted." "Your board presentation last month was outstanding," I replied, voice firm yet warm. Clear, persuasive, and backed by precise data. Natalie's face lit up with the rare glow of professional recognition. "I learned from the best," she said. Ethan entered the kitchen, laptop in hand. "Can I run something by you? I'm thinking of starting a financial consultancy for tech startups. I've drafted a business plan." This was another unexpected shift. Since Christmas, Ethan had sought my guidance on his career, turning to me as a mentor, a role I had never imagined holding within my family. Our relationship deepened as our professional and personal worlds intertwined. Later, we gathered around the deck table, water glinting in the fading sun. I reflected on the transformation of these 6 months, not just the external blending of careers and family life, but the inner shifts that allowed us to truly see one another. "I've been thinking about something," my father began, voice low, "about what you said at Christmas, wanting to be valued for who you are, not just for your accomplishments." I nodded, remembering the conversation that had sparked our healing. "That was my desire too," he continued. "I wanted my worth defined by achievements and status. I imposed that on all of you, especially you, Quinn, because you challenged that system most directly." It was perhaps the most profound insight he had ever shared about us. "I think we were all trapped in that same cycle," Natalie admitted, measuring our worth against external benchmarks. "I was so afraid of losing my title as the successful one that I couldn't celebrate anyone else's victories." "Especially mine," I said quietly. "Especially yours," she agreed, eyes softening. "Because you built your success on your own terms." It made me feel threatened. As the evening stretched on, I felt the weight of years of concealment lift. Revealing my true self had not only transformed our relationships, but reshaped my own perception. I no longer sought approval. I had established boundaries while opening space for reconciliation. I had found strength in vulnerability and clarity in what had once been isolation. Professionally, the consequences were equally striking. Stepping forward as the face of Nextech drew scrutiny, yes, but it ultimately fortified our market position. My family experiences inspired company policies that promoted work-life balance and non-traditional career paths. I began mentoring young entrepreneurs, especially women overlooked by conventional power structures, a fulfillment rivaling any acquisition or product launch. Most unexpectedly, Natalie and I had forged a true partnership. Her marketing instincts complemented my technical vision. Rivalry had given way to collaboration. We each found security in our unique contributions. "Do you remember the garage?" my mother asked suddenly, interrupting my thoughts, her voice carrying a hint of amusement, and perhaps the faintest acknowledgement of how far we'd all come. The question could have once sparked anger or resentment, but now I merely smiled, a quiet acknowledgement of the past. "Hard to forget," I said. "We converted it," my father explained, "into a home office for when you visit. Heated floors, proper insulation, a desk with a view of the garden." The gesture was laden with meaning. The same space that had symbolized my exclusion now stood as proof of their acceptance. "That's thoughtful," I replied, genuinely touched. Outside, the stars reflected across the lake, each one a glimmer of the distance we'd traveled and the journey that still awaited. We weren't perfect. Old habits occasionally resurfaced, and moments of tension still flared. But we were evolving, learning to be honest and present with each other. That previous Christmas had been a crucible, burning away facades and forcing us to truly see one another. The discomfort had been necessary, clearing the way for growth. I realized that true success wasn't measured solely by achievements, accolades, or market dominance. It was defined by the authenticity of the connections we nurture and the courage it takes to reveal ourselves fully, It demanded vulnerability, a willingness to exceed expectations, not only of others, but of oneself. The real victory lay not just in what I created, but in the person I had become along the way. As my family prepared to depart, exchanging plans for next month's reunion, I felt a serenity that no professional milestone had ever granted me. The garage, once my Christmas refuge, was now only a distant memory, replaced by warmth, acknowledgement, and connection. Have you ever hidden a part of yourself from family or friends, only to have it unexpectedly revealed? How did they react? Share your experience in the comments. If this story resonates, please like, subscribe, and pass it along to someone who might need a reminder. Sometimes, the ones who doubt your dreams most are the ones who must witness your success.